Good day everyone, I am Faiqah. Today, me and my group are going to share with you guys the information that we have found on Brunei's education and language policies. We are going to compare it with 5 other countries, that is Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia and Cambodia. Education in Brunei is regulated by the government of Brunei through the Ministry of Education and is working with the Ministry of Religious Affairs. The Ministry of Education manages most of the government and private schools, while the Ministry of Religious Affairs specifically administers government schools that provide Islamic religious education. So it means that they are working hand in hand to make sure that Muslim pupils are getting enough education on the religious affairs. Next is the formal education. Formal education comprises compulsory, post-secondary and higher education. Compulsory education may be of 2 types. That is general education, which takes 12 years of your schooling years and consists of preschool, primary school and secondary schools. While the second type of compulsory education is the Islamic religious primary education, which lasts 7 years and is compulsory for Muslim pupils in Brunei. General education may be attained in government or private school, whereas religious education is attained in government religious schools, meaning that like we have in Malaysia, the primary school, after primary schools, we have this sekolah agama. Next is the post-secondary education may consist of 6th form, which is an extension of secondary and allows direct entrance to higher education. Technical and vocational education, which are provided by government institutions and private colleges. So meaning that after you take your post-secondary education, you can just go directly into higher education, or you can continue to the technical or vocational educations. Okay. Higher education from a bachelor's degree is provided in 4 government universities. Education in Brunei is fully paid by the government. Next is the language policy. Official language of Brunei Darussalam is Bahasa Melayu, Malay, yet the country is diverse both linguistically and culturally. The country has a long tradition of selective English medium education since 1984. And since 1984, English has been available to all, meaning everyone in Brunei, including the ones who's living in the remote areas. Brunei has a diverse population and a number of speech communities. As a result of its geography, 7 distinct Malay communities, that is Belait, Bisaya, Brunei Malay, Dusun, Kedayan, Murut and Tutong, as well as 2 indigenous communities, that is Iban and Kelabit. The use of English in Brunei gradually expanded during the period of British protectorate. The use of English expanded from 1888 to 1984, especially after the introduction of the bilingual system of education in 1985. Next, I will share to you guys about the importance of language and English language in Brunei. The 1959 Constitution of Brunei regards Malay as the official language of the country. It is used for most official purposes such as in courts and as a medium of instruction in schools. However, English has also been an important language of education in Brunei since the inception of public education there. By the 1970s, a rapidly modernizing Brunei began to realize the significance and the status of English language. They saw how important the English language is throughout the whole world. So in 1985, the education system became fully bilingual in theory, aiming to create equal opportunities for all Bruneians to learn both Malay and English through school. English is also widely used, especially in formal domains such as education, as it is the medium of instruction for most classes in the secondary school and at the main university, University Brunei Darussalam, UBD. The next is the linguistic diversity. Okay, we have 4 linguistic diversities in Brunei, and the first is the official language, and it's officially Malay. And the minority languages is Lun Bawang, Tutong, Bisaya, Belait, Dusun, Chinese, for example, Hakka, Cantonese, and Hokkien, and also Indian and Nepali. Okay, the next one will be the expatriate languages: Batak, Indonesian, Javanese, Betawi, Sundani.
Hi everyone. So since Faiqah has told about Brunei, so it's my time to talk about Malaysia. So in Malaysia, we have MOE, or known as the Ministry of Education. Ministry of Education are responsible for the education system, compulsory education, pre-tertiary education, technical education and training, curriculum standard textbook, standardized test, language policy, translation, selective school, comprehensive school. Public primary school are divided into two categories based on the medium of instruction. Malay Medium National School, Sekolah Kebangsaan, Non-Malay Medium National Type School, Sekolah Jenis Kebangsaan, SAK, also known as the vernacular schools. So the language of instruction, Bahasa Melayu is the primary language of instruction in Malaysian public schools. In 2003, the government introduced a policy of using English as the second language of instruction for science and mathematics. However, this policy was discontinued in 2011. English is taught as a second language in both primary and secondary school in Chinese and Tamil National Type Primary School. Bahasa Melayu is taught as a second language and English is taught as a third language in public university. The language of instruction in bachelor degree program in Bahasa Melayu except for subjects are related to science, mathematics and computing, and IT subjects which are generally taught in English. Most graduate studies are also conducted in English. In private higher education institution, English is usually the language of instruction. Okay, so what is the difference between Brunei and Malaysia? In Malaysia and Brunei, both educations are controlled by government. Although Malay is the official language of Brunei, English is the main medium of instruction in most primary and secondary school as well as colleges, universities and Chinese compared to Malaysia. Malay is an official language and the other major language is English, Chinese and Tamil. In 2008, the new SPN education system was introduced and math and science have been taught in English from the start of primary school, so the role of English is even more firmly established. Okay, so this is just additional info. The language of the courts in Brunei is mainly in English, though, just as in Malaysia, code switching between English and Malay is common.
To talk about the education in Singapore, I have to start with meritocracy. Meritocracy is actually a political system in which the economic goals and the political power are all vested in individual people in basis of their talents, efforts and achievement rather than their social class or wealth. So to say, the education system in Singapore are all managed by the government. They implemented a scheme which is called EduSafe program. Let's move on to their language policy. So, the Singapore has adopted a bilingual education policy, which is since 1966. Under this policy, English is one of the four official languages which is taught as the first language and is the main medium of instruction in all schools. The other three official language is Chinese, Malay and Tamil, which are the mother tongue language or MTL in short of the major ethnic group, which is being taught as the second language in school, and all students are actually required to learn one MTL according to their ethnicity. Okay, I'm going to compare them with the Brunei education and language policy. Starting with their education. In Brunei, the religious institution and their private and government school are all managed by different ministry. In Singapore, all schools are actually managed by the Ministry of Education itself. And the second difference is actually where the Brunei actually focus on Islamic religious study in their sekolah agama. In Singapore, their madrasah actually offers Islamic religious studies education and also secular education in their curricula. In Brunei, they have a selective English medium education. Meanwhile, in Singapore, there are actually no selective medium education because English language is actually the main medium of instruction in schools.
For Thailand education, here we have mainly provided by the Thai government through the Minister of Education from preschool to senior high school. Formal education consists of at least 12 years of basic education and higher education. Basic education is divided into 6 years of primary education and 6 years of secondary education. The latter being further divided into 3 years of lower and upper secondary levels, and a variable provided non-formal education is also supported by the state. Administration and control of public and private universities are carried out by the Ministry of University Affairs. Their education policy, however, in Thailand from year 1893 to present, it is divided into 6 periods: informal education, early dawn of formal education, early dawn of democracy, self-criticism, decline, and the present. The main reason for teaching English is In each period, English co-curriculum, the methods of teaching and learning, the outcome and the problems of implementation are discussed. The influence of linguistic concepts in teaching a foreign language and politics during each period are pointed out. The contrastive review of the 1990 and 1996 English for all education levels is presented to show the present concept and vision of the new development in English education in Thailand. In addition, both an overview of English at different education levels. Example, samples of co-curriculum, teaching method, evaluation and grading, and language policy and rules of language according to the English National Economic and Social Development Plan 1966 until 2001 are provided to show that the government is working toward the extension of basic education to 12 years. So, the comprehension I can see from this Brunei emphasized in their new education goal the need of the industry in providing skills and knowledge without ignoring their values. And Thailand aim to develop individuals in 4 fundamental principles: wisdom, thinking, and morality.
The Indonesian education system is managed by 2 ministries, the Ministry of Education and Culture, MOEC, which is responsible for over 80% of all students, teachers and schools, and the Ministry of Religion, which is responsible for the remainder including Islamic school or madrasah. In addition to the support to public school, both ministries also support private schools through funding civil servant teachers and providing block grants directly to schools. Schools in Indonesia are run either by the government, negeri, or private sector, swasta. Some private schools refer themselves as National Plus schools, which means that their curriculum exceeds requirements set by the Ministry of Education, especially with the use of English as medium of instruction or having an international-based curriculum instead of the national one. Indonesia's education system comprises of 4 levels of education: primary from grade 1 until 6, junior secondary grade 7 until 9, senior secondary grade 10 to 12, and higher education. Besides high school, students can choose among 47 programs of vocational and pre-professional high school, Sekolah Menengah Kejuruan. Now, the school year is divided into 2 semesters. The first one commences in July and ends in December, while the latter commences in January and ends in June. Now, for the language policy, Indonesian is the official language of instruction in the school system, although Indonesia's various spoken language may also be used at a local level in the first years of elementary education. In higher education, Indonesian is the medium of instruction as well, but English is becoming more common for some programs, and textbooks are commonly printed in English. There have been some plans to make English mandatory at Indonesian universities, but these plans have not been realized as of today. Now, to compare the education in Brunei and Indonesia, I would say there's not much different on it. For the preschool education in Brunei, the children in the country begin at the age of 5, and the same goes to the children in Indonesia. Also, for the primary education, both countries, Brunei and Indonesia, take a total of 6 years to complete.
Now, it's my job to, last but not least, compare between Brunei and Cambodia. But before I compare these two, let me explain a little bit of education and language policy in Cambodia. The education in Cambodia is controlled by the state through the Ministry of Education at a national level. Simpler explanation, the education is controlled by the state and the state is controlled by the National Ministry of Education. You get it, right? So how does the Cambodian education system work? The Cambodian education system includes preschool, primary, general secondary, higher education, and non-formal education. Now that we have learned about the education system, how about the language policy in Cambodia? Khmer or Khmer language is the native language of Cambodia, as well as the medium of interaction in school. Meanwhile, Pali is the language of religion, which is the lingua franca of Buddhism in Southeast Asia. French was the language used in modern education. So for my explanation itself, you can imagine how diverse their language can get in their history of languages, right? In Brunei and Cambodia, in their education and language policy, the diversity, alright? So in education, both are controlled by the government. But the difference is that Brunei is controlled by the country's Ministry of Education, meanwhile Cambodia is controlled by the state, to the national level Ministry of Education. The second difference is that, of course, the religious education is different in both countries. Brunei focuses more on the Islamic education, meanwhile in Cambodia they focus more on the Buddhism religion education. You can see the difference here in their grades too. Moving on to the language policy, as you may already know, Brunei has a long tradition of selective English medium education, as explained before by Faiqah. So, meanwhile in Cambodia, they use the Khmer, also known as Khmer language, as their medium education. The second difference is that Brunei is more exposed to the English language rather than Cambodia in their education. But the similarity that they both have is that they value more on the people that have the higher education in English.